Good morning, everybody. What a crowd. Man, we got a good crowd today. So how many of you guys watched The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls? Okay. Did you know that Michael Jordan has missed 9,000 shots? He has missed over 300 game-winning shots, but he is, in my opinion, the greatest basketball player ever to play the game. How many would prefer Michael Jordan versus LeBron James? Let's just do a quick poll. Michael Jordan? All right, how many LeBron James? That gives away the... That's what I was thinking. That gives away the age of our congregation right there is what that does. So the reason I mention that is because life is full of challenges. Okay, it's full of challenges. If Michael Jordan, when he had missed that first game-winning shot, had said, "I'm done. I give up. This is too much pain. I can't handle the sports talk radio. I can't handle all the negative press that I am getting," we would have been deprived of one of the most remarkable sports careers of all time, right? But he didn't. He just kept coming back. When he would lose, he would play that much harder. So this morning, we were watching TV when we were getting ready for church, and there was a poll that said that 80% of Americans believe that the world is out of control. 80% feel like the world is out of control. 15% feel like it's not out of control. I don't know what the other 5% believe. They're undecided, I guess. The world is not out of control. God is in everything that happens. He is with us every minute. The demonstrations that we see, God is in those. God is in COVID. He is doing something in our world. I know it. I am so sure that we are seeing a reset in our world right now. I want to tell you a little bit I had a couple of weeks ago, I was visiting with the band about this before we started this morning. I had the opportunity to have dinner in a group setting. It wasn't just me and him, but dinner with this guy named Elon Musk, okay? Elon Musk, he is very, very different than what you would expect. Really, really smart. I told Angela, I think I understood approximately 20% of our conversation. He loves space, loves to talk about the technical side of space. But here's the thing I came away from this dinner feeling. One is, I don't think he values money at all. Now, granted, you can say that when you just got a $700 million bonus because Tesla hit some mark or whatever. I think that's irrelevant to him. I also think he has no fear of failure whatsoever. If you remember SpaceX, they had 3 brutal launches. The rockets exploded. Everybody had written them off. Whenever they went to number 4, he said if it didn't work out, they were done. And he knew that going in, they had about a 90% chance of failure. It didn't matter to him. He had a vision that they're driving toward, and that's to him, that's the end game, is to drive toward this vision. So if you think about it, when we're little, we fall down all the time, right? When we're learning to walk, we stumble, we fall into stuff. It is a challenge. If when we fell, we said, "I'm done. I'm not going to try this anymore," we would look really silly all crawling around this church today. We deal with failure, but for some reason, as we get older, as we become adults, failure is so scary to us. It's as if we just cannot stand the chance of looking bad to others, or letting somebody down. But failure is a very normal part of life. And I want to read this to you. Many of you know every morning we do a devotional. And I want to read this to you from this week. It's from the devotional Jesus Calling. It says, "Welcome challenging times as opportunities to trust me. You have me beside you and my spirit within you, so no set of circumstances is too much for you to handle. When the path before you is dotted with difficulties, beware of measuring your strength against those challenges. That calculation is certain to riddle you with anxiety. Without me, you wouldn't make it past the first hurdle. The way to walk through demanding days is to grip my hand tightly and stay in close communication with me. Let your thoughts and spoken words be richly flavored with trust and thankfulness. Regardless of the day's problems, I can keep you in perfect peace as you stay close to me. In James 1:2, it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds," and sisters. And here's what I want us to think about. This is when John asked me to step in for him today and give him a break, I was thinking about and praying about what do you talk about during a time like this? And here is what I felt like the Lord shared with me. If this is all there is, and ironically, today in Sunday school, we were talking about a belief, a certain type of belief that life is meaningless. There is a whole philosophical belief around the fact that rules don't matter, religion doesn't matter, nothing matters, life is meaningless. If you feel like, if you're here today or you're watching us online and we feel like this is it, this is all there is, we're going to get X number of years on this earth and then that's all she wrote, then you don't want to listen to this message because this doesn't apply to you. Because what I believe and what I believe that Scripture tells us is we are in training camp right now for heaven. The reason we're really here is it's not about us. It's about eternity with Jesus Christ. And so what happens is, unfortunately, we learn the best whenever we are challenged. I wish we didn't. I wish that just like the Israelites, I wish we could be happy with what we have. And I wish when everything was going great, we could be growing and learning, but we don't. That is not the way it works. If you think about your life, the times that you grow the most in your life have been the hardest times, right? Are those the times when you're closest with God or during the hardest times? And that's the way that God, unfortunately, teaches us. So because this is not all that there is, because we are here in preparation, in boot camp, in training camp to prepare for a life of eternity in heaven, we can welcome and embrace the challenges. If you think about, I think we're leaving here, excuse my attire, we're going to leave here and go straight across the street to a Little League baseball game, okay? And when we go, here is what you see at a Little League baseball game. You see a variety of perspectives, okay? You see some who are fairly laid back and who know that the purpose of youth sports is growth. The reason that we have youth sports is so that the kids can learn teamwork. They can learn how to bounce back from defeat. They can learn that preparation helps them to perform better, the value of hard work, all those types of things. But what do we also see? We also see a win at all cost. If my kid doesn't do well, I'm going to scream at him at the top of my lungs type of parenting. And that is so much like life, if you think about it. If we approach life in a way that we are those Little League players, okay? God is the umpire, and we are all in this game to grow and to develop and to get better. It helps us deal with the pop fly that we wish we had hit further, or the strikeout, or the time in our life when we wish we had performed better. But when we think it's all about winning, life we lose our path. We take challenges and quote-unquote defeat, I'm going to attempt to reframe this for you, much, much differently. So this really came home with me one day. I had picked up an executive coach that I had been working with in Oklahoma City. He had done a speaking engagement for us, and we were driving down the turnpike heading back to Tulsa. His name is Rand Stagen. So I was visiting with Rand on the way back, and he was saying, how's everything going? And at that particular time, I was dealing with a challenge with my board of directors, okay? One of my challenges is I do not do very well. I'm not great at taking direction, okay? I'm very, very good. Angela will attest to this. I'm very, very good at giving direction. I just don't take it very well. So we're driving down the turnpike, and I said, well, let me tell you about a challenge that I am having. And my board, they're micromanaging me. They're telling me what to do. That's not their job. They're supposed to be strategic, and I'm operational, but they're getting in my business. And Rand says, you know what I think? I think that the work is in you. And I said, well, what do you mean the work is in me? And he said, what do you need to learn from this experience? What is it that you need to learn from the way you are feeling? How are you feeling? Well, I'm feeling very frustrated at the current time. I don't really like my board a whole lot right now. I'm feeling like I need to just replace them all and get a new board that will just do everything I want them to do. That's how I feel. And he said, what you need to do is think about how you are feeling and what is the teaching for you. He said, anytime we are in a situation where we are feeling frustration, when we're in a situation where we're feeling anger, negative emotions, the work is in us. So you can guess what the work is that I needed to do, which was to listen and to allow others who have more wisdom or a different perspective to help me. And he was 100% right. That's exactly what I needed to learn. So does anybody in here like problems or challenges? Is there anybody? You need to come up here and preach for me right now. Well, one. A few of us do. But here's what I want us to think about. I was just this morning I was praying through this and let me present in my life some things that I didn't like at the time, but have shown me a whole lot today, taught me a whole lot. Getting my black belt in Taekwondo, it was miserable. Okay, very, very difficult. I'm not a flexible human being. A lot of this is about stretching and kicking and stuff that is not natural for this physique that you are seeing here today. It was petrifying. Angela, I could never sleep the night before a belt testing. Everybody's watching you. You have to do these forms, break boards. I'm trying to not to die in the middle of sparring. It was awful. But it teaches you that you're capable of much more than you think that you are. Life on the farm. I grew up on a farm 4 miles north of Beggs, Oklahoma, near the Jones family, and it was a big bummer. I'll just tell you. I mean, we worked every day, daylight till dark. All my friends had swimming pools. They're at the park playing basketball. I mean, they're all going on dates. We've got something broke every time I was getting ready to go on a date. The baler breaks down or something. We're stuck out in the middle of the hayfield. It was it was fun overall, but there were times when it was very, very frustrating. But what do you learn? A work ethic that is unparalleled. I mean, people are like, man, you work so hard. Today you're up early, you go late. And I'm like, there isn't anything you're going to do in an air-conditioned office that compares to baling hay in 110-degree weather. Difficult bosses, coworkers, boards, business partners. It teaches you how to be a better leader. Challenging financial times teaches you God's provision. I mean, you learn that we had to rely upon God. Starting a church, starting a nonprofit, very difficult. Taught us God's faithfulness. Being in government service can be very frustrating at times. Things that ought to be easier to do are not. Motives aren't always the purest. It teaches you patience. People not doing what they say they're going to do. People who betray us. Very, very frustrating, but it teaches us forgiveness. Going through a cancer experience together teaches us to rely on God. Challenges teach us amazing things in our life. That's why God calls us to embrace them. If you think about it, even with cities, I was thinking about this morning. Oklahoma City took a tremendous turn for the better with Bricktown and all the things that they've done. And all that came from the fact that United Airlines almost chose Oklahoma City, ended up going elsewhere, and it made them take a hard look within. Tulsa, our Vision 25 came out of large oil companies moving away to go to Houston and other places like Citgo, where Angela worked. I mean, challenges make us so much better. When you think about in the Bible, there's so many of our biblical heroes that had to come through challenges. Joseph, Job, Moses, Peter. And I want to talk just a little bit about Gideon. And in Judges 6, I just want to read this to you real quick. This is really a remarkable story. The angel of the Lord came out and sat under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abizrite. That's all I'll be saying of that word, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Now see if you can relate to this. He said, "Pardon me, my Lord, but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." Did you ever feel this way? Where are you, Lord? You said you were going to be there. You gave me all of these promises. Why is all this craziness happening? He said, the Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? Go in the strength you have." Not somebody else's strength, not the neighbor, not the Joneses that we're trying to keep up with, not any of that, the strength that you have. Gideon replied, "How can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family. We're the weakest family, and I'm the weakling of the weakest family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive." Gideon replied, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it is you really talking to me. Please don't go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you." And the Lord said, "I will wait." Long story short, we know what happened. Gideon turns from the weakest in his family into an amazing warrior and saves the entire country. He said, "God, why should I believe you? What I'm dealing with is not good. They've taken us over. Our life is terrible. We are dealing with this." And God said, "I am still in control." He said, "I am still in control." The greatest success, a lot of times, is married to the greatest failure. Let me give you some examples here real quick. I love baseball. Nolan Ryan had the most strikeouts of any major league pitcher. Maybe still, he did for many, many years, but he also gave up the most home runs. Ricky Henderson had the most steals of anybody. Man, he was so fast, but he got thrown out more than anybody else at second base. Babe Ruth had the most home runs for many, many years, many decades, and he had the most strikeouts. And Michael Jordan, as I mentioned earlier, lost the most last-second games than anybody in the history of basketball. Nobody has missed more last-second shots than Michael Jordan did. Henry Ford, his business failed 5 times before he sold his first automobile. Colonel Sanders, his secret recipe was rejected 1,009 times before a restaurant accepted it. Now think about that. We wouldn't have any Kentucky Fried Chicken if Colonel Sanders had given up. Amen. Amen, Colonel Sanders. Walt Disney was fired by a newspaper editor because he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Isn't that crazy? Albert Einstein was expelled from school and wasn't accepted into college. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before inventing the light bulb. Oprah Winfrey was fired as a TV reporter because she was unfit for TV. And J.K. Rowling fought severe depression and lived on welfare for decades before writing Harry Potter. I mean, it's amazing. Failure often precedes tremendous success. Rick Warren says that we're focusing on the wrong thing in our life. He says in 1 Timothy 6:21, it says, some of these people have missed the most important thing in life. They don't know God. He says there are 18 inches between your head and your heart. But unfortunately, some people will miss heaven by those 18 inches. They know God in their heads, but not in their hearts. They intellectually believe the Bible, believe the gospel, but they've never let it change their hearts. He said, I went to school for a long time, a total of 24 years when you include my master's and doctorate degrees. Honestly, I've forgotten much of what I've learned, he says, during that time, but I've never forgotten the most important truth that I ever learned. We were made by God, and we were made for God. Until we understand that, life will never make sense. You were not made for your own sake. He said you might know string theory, chaos theory, or quantum physics, but if you don't know God, you've missed the purpose of your life. At the end of your life, God will give you a final test. Here's the good news, he says. It'll be an open book exam. All the answers are in the Bible. On that test, God won't ask you if you got straight A's, although I want you to, girls. He won't care about how well you did in your career. He won't ask to see your bank account balance. Instead, he will ask this: did you get to know me? Did you build a relationship with my son, whom I sent to earth to die on the cross for you? He says, decide today that you will set your heart and mind on learning more about the most important truth and getting to know Jesus. So, interestingly, there have been 34 major protests since 2010 in our country. 34. Here's just a few examples. In 2010, we had the Oakland protest over the shooting of Oscar Grant on New Year's Day. 2011, Occupy Wall Street. 2012, an Anaheim police shooting and protest. 2014, the Bundy standoff. That was the rancher up in Montana or somewhere in that area, maybe Wyoming. Yeah. 2014, the Ferguson unrest near St. Louis. 2015, Baltimore protest. 2016, Dakota Access Pipeline protest. 2017, May Day protest in Olympia and Portland. 2019, the Memphis riot, and now the George Floyd protests. So why do you think there have been 34 different protests just in this last decade? 34 major ones. Because people, they do not feel heard. They do not feel respected. They don't feel like the powers that be are listening to their frustrations and to their concerns. And what I want to share today is that God hears everything. He's listening to every word. He's there with us every minute. As I started out in that devotional, he's just asking us to reach up and grasp his right hand. He just says, hold my hand. I will get you through this, and I will teach you what you need to know along the way. She's attended here some. Brittany Regal is a young lady that works at our bank. And she was involved in a demonstration or a protest near Tulsa Hills, and there were a bunch of people around, very peaceful. It was perfectly well done. And there began to be some frustration between the police officers that were there and some of the people that were in the crowd. And Brittany said she felt this urge to pray. So she went to the cops and to these people and said, can I pray with you? Will you let me pray with you? And it's on social media. It is viral now. The cops said, absolutely, I would love to pray with you. The individuals that were frustrated said, absolutely. They all kneeled, and she gave the most beautiful prayer that I've ever heard. It completely diffused the situation, everybody hugged and when it was all said and done. And that is God's role in this. That is how we achieve unity. God is a God of transformation. He can turn challenges from challenging to good. So in this life, we have to expect trouble. We live in a fallen world. We're going to deal with a lot of challenges in our country, in our world, and in our individual lives. But God is saying, no matter how crazy things look, no matter how your path may feel wild, I am in control. You are where you're supposed to be right now for a reason, because God has you in that very place today. So as we close, I just want to share a couple of things real quick that as I prayed through this, I think we want to remember as we go through challenging times. Number one, trust in Jesus. And I think that a very simple practice every single day, all day long, can change our lives. And that is to say, I trust you, Jesus, all day, every day. Or if something great happens in our lives, I thank you, Jesus. I trust you, Jesus, when things are challenging, when they don't make sense, when we're dealing with challenges and with our family, at work, and our finances, whatever I trust you, Jesus. Number two, ask Jesus for help and guidance. I cannot tell you how many. I've been struggling with this relief program that we're trying to put together at the state level for small businesses. Angela knows for weeks. I think about it and I'd work it out, and then there's a problem that won't work, and that's picking favorites. I just struggled. So one morning I got up super early. I couldn't sleep, and I just began to pray. And I just asked, Jesus, help me with this. Help me. How can I help our businesses within our state? And I think he laid out the perfect situation. Why didn't I do that 3 weeks ago? I don't know, because I didn't follow my own teaching. I wish I would have. But I think a lot of times there is wisdom there. There are resources there to be had. We just don't ask. A lot of times we just fail to ask. Number three, take one day at a time. One of our biggest problems as people is we tend to take future problems and pull them into today. And a lot of times, by the time we get there to that future problem, the road has veered and we didn't even have to deal with it anyway. Things changed. And so just take one day at a time. And finally, and I think this one is the magic, and my friend Dave Jewett taught me this. When you are in the middle of a challenge or a problem, ask God this very, very simple question: what would you have me trust you for in this situation? When I'm going through it and I feel anxiety and I feel scared, just ask God, what is he teaching us? What is he asking us to trust him for? And I can tell you from very, very personal experience, that is a game changer whenever you will just ask him that very simple question. So as we close today, I know that we're probably in the same percentage in this church and online that of the poll that was taken this morning. And there's probably a lot of us feeling uncertainty and concern about our world and our country right now. I just encourage you to remember that just like God was there with Gideon when things didn't look great in his life and in his village, he is there for you and I as well. Let's utilize these challenges and problems that we have to grow as opportunities to come closer to him, because we really are just here in training camp for a life in eternity with him. Thank you all so much.